Once I got the following tools on my espresso bar, I realized I couldn't live without them anymore. So by the end of this video, you'll know which tools you need, and I'll tell you the ones that I think have been overhyped. The first tool that is essential for all home espresso enthusiasts is this. It's a handheld small vacuum cleaner. You're gonna get coffee grinds all over the place, and without one of these, you'll be brushing them around everywhere. Having to cup your hands at the edge of the table and then wash them is just an extra faff that I don't need, especially when it's cold and your hands start getting dried out. I had a big chunky vacuum cleaner which worked reasonably well, but I recently picked up this one from Hoto during the Black Friday sale, and it's been so much better. It's very high powered, easy to clean, and it doesn't lose much power at all from espresso grinds clogging up the filters. I also like that this one has a little blower attachment on the other side, so I can use it to dust off any of my coffee gear. Next up is the cheapest good upgrade to your espresso setup, which is a WDT or Weiss distribution tool. There are lots of different types, but the most simple ones cost about $5, and they're just a handle with some acupuncture needles sticking out. I still know a lot of people who don't use one, and if you're in a cafe, I totally understand. It's just too much extra time. But at home, you do have 5 seconds to just give a quick rotation with your needle tool, and what it does to your coffee bed is actually pretty invaluable. Check this out. On my transparent basket, you can see that this is breaking up boulders and distributing your coffee grinds more evenly around the basket, so you can reduce your risk of channeling, which is where the water finds an easier path through your coffee bed and misses extracting most of the tasty coffee goodness. Even if you can't see it well just by looking at your coffee bed or your extraction, the difference is clear when you look at a refractometer. Here's a test of me using the same coffee, all with the same settings, but this is how much extra extraction you get when you've evened out your espresso grinds with a WDT. Now, which WDT tool should you get? I've played with a bunch of them, including these fancy schmancy ones that have patterns of needles that hit all the right spots. And personally, I still prefer one of the first ones I got, which is this simple magnetized tool from MHW3 Bomber. Come on guys, you know I'm obsessed with magnets in espresso gear. There are more automated solutions like these two, and the prohibitively expensive ones like the Weber Moonraker that I'm not prepared to spend £382 plus shipping on. These look nice and promise to speed up the process, but overall I find they tend to make my workflow a little less reliable than a quick twist and tap. In my experience, these are form over function and a solution in search of a problem. So then what if you do have bad distribution? How will you know? That's why the next thing you need is a bottomless portafilter. Apart from making your shots look gorgeous, they give you an insight into how well you're distributing and whether your grind size is too fine or too coarse. One of the things you won't see when you have a spouted portafilter is whether or not your espresso is channeling. If it is, you might even hit your espresso timings, but the coffee will still taste like crap because the water wasn't extracting a lot of the coffee grinds. So I usually use my bottomless portafilter at least when I'm dialing in, so I have more information to adjust my settings with. And a little trick from the pros here, if I'm doing latte art, I use the spouted version because I can angle it so it falls to the side of the cup, which reduces bubbles and keeps more of that rich crema canvas to pour onto. So which bottomless portafilter should you get? Well, the first thing that you need to check is that any third-party portafilters are compatible with your specific espresso machine. I once bought a really nice iCape bottomless portafilter for my sister's machine, but it didn't quite lock into her old ECM Giotto. So first thing to check is that it works on your machine, and then decide which kind of portafilter handle you want. There are lots with different wood or plastic handles. You can match them to your machine, like this black portafilter and basket with walnut handle I got for the flare, or get wood accents that amplify the look of your machine, like the one that comes with the Meraki. I even got this all metal single piece one which has an integrated basket and gets more stable temperatures because of the thicker wall. It's up to you, but I'll leave links to my favorites in the description. Another thing I will never go back to not having is a shot mirror. I used to have to crane my neck like some creature from a horror movie to see if my shot was pulling properly. This is just no good. Save yourself from neck pain and just get a shot mirror. There are a bunch of them. Usually they have a little ring stand like this one, and some have a magnet, but make sure that your machine has something metal to clip onto if you get one of those. Now, another thing that I use every day is a little bean doser like this. You can use a small measuring cup as well, but you don't want to be using the dosing cup that comes with your grinder. Having a second vessel speeds up this process a lot and lets you hot start your grinder, which is always better for grinding speed and consistency, and for the motors in your grinder as well. I used to use this little cup, which worked well because of the slant on the edge here, but recently I've been using this ceramic bean doser. It was only like $3 from AliExpress, and it works great. Now, the longer you have an espresso machine, the more you'll realize that you need to maintain drain it. Much like learning a few things about keeping your car running, coffee machines need some attention too. So I keep an electric screwdriver like this one so I can quickly remove burrs or coverings or fix and clean out my machine. This one is also from Hoto. They aren't sponsoring this video and I bought these both with my own money, but I do just like how small and powerful their stuff is. Whichever screwdriver you get, even if it's not electric, make sure you have an array of sizes. This one does have heads for most things I need, although I do have some mini screwdrivers for smaller screw heads. And if you get an electric one, it should have control over the torque so you can get enough leverage to remove things like burr screws without stripping the heads. I've nearly done that before and let me tell you, it is not fun. One more thing you'll want to have is an air removing coffee storage canister. A lot of time I keep my coffee in the bag it came with, which is fine especially if it has a degassing valve, but every now and then I find that a bag gets damaged, the threads don't align, or I tear the top off in such a way that I can't close it back up again. So I have a nice storage container to keep air out and keep my beans fresh for when that happens. This one is from Airscape. For me, theirs are the easiest and most functional for coffee because they have this little press which pushes out any excess air, which does make a difference in keeping your coffee fresher for longer. I do the same with coffee bags when I close them up, always pushing the air out of the bag to reduce the bean's contact with the air. Now, before I get onto the most overhyped coffee tools, one thing I use every day now is the brew ledger. I made this book to help you dial in your settings and tasting notes for your espresso and spent a long time working with printers to make it look and feel great to use. It's got a faux crushed leather cover, gold foil title, 120 GSM fountain pen ready paper, and this nice little ribbon to mark your page. I've also included guides and experiments throughout the book to help you improve your espresso with every shot. So if you want to quit wasting coffee beans and never lose track of your dial-in settings again, take a look at the link in the description to get the brew ledger. Okay, back to the video. So what are the most overrated espresso tools that are hyped to the max? The first among these is the distribution tool. I've had several of them, and in all my testing, I found that they do nothing or next to nothing to improve distribution compared with just a soft tap on the side of the portafilter with your palm. They do make the coffee bed look nice though, and they are quite satisfying in a way, but the results just aren't there to demonstrate any effectiveness. That's not to say that they have a negative effect, so if you have one and you like the experience of using it, that's fine. Just don't go out and buy one thinking that it will improve your distribution, because as far as I'm concerned, it won't. The next biggest culprit of the espresso gear FOMO is an expensive competition latte art jug. Unless your jug is truly crap and broken or bent out of shape, a budget latte art jug is fine for almost everyone. I've bought expensive milk pitchers thinking that they would improve my latte art, and they never do. And that's because the biggest limiting factor with your latte art is your milk texturing skill and your pouring skill. The only real difference you need to pay attention to is the spout, and for beginners, a simple round spout is ideal. When you start doing free pours, you might want to get yourself a sharp spout, like I did when I got the Barista Swag Ultra Sharp 2.0 as my first not budget jug. And to this day, that's probably still my favorite sharp spout. You only need to look at competition grade jugs when that's right, you start doing competitions. The reason for needing this in competitions is that you want consistency, and cheaper jugs tend to be quite high on variance from jug to jug. A slight dimple or a twist in the spout when you're trying to pour the most perfect seahorse that ever was can mean the difference between winning a latte art competition and getting kicked out in the first round, like I was at the Caffeine Latte Art Throwdown last year. That had nothing to do with the latte art jug, I was just nervous and screwed up the milk. Speaking of screwing up the milk, another thing you don't need to go out and buy is a milk thermometer. I have one, I've used it, but your hand is pretty sensitive to heat, so you can just feel the underside of your jug, and when it's too hot to touch, you're done. You'll learn how to sense what is too hot and not by touch, and then you don't need to just follow what the tool says to do. You can also judge when the milk is done based on the sound the steam one makes after you've injected air. You'll hear the milk proteins unraveling and the lactose sugars scolding. A good time to stop would be about 10 seconds before I sounded like that. That's why if you ever catch me in a chain cafe at an airport, you'll see me like this. No. Now, it's still relatively rare on espresso machines, but the new Meraki has a temperature sensor built into the steam wand, which tells you the current temperature of the milk. So you can just stop it at around 55 degrees C if you like coffee, and at around 65 to 70 if you just want to be warm. Another overhyped device is a pressure or impact tamper, but only if you already have a tamp. Let me be clear, I actually quite like my MHW3 Bomber U-Series impact tamper. It makes a satisfying sound, and that's enough for me to use it, but don't be mistaken, I don't think it has any impact, see what I did there, on creating a level and compressed coffee puck, so you don't need it. If you're still using the crappy feeling tamper that came with your espresso machine, it might be a nice upgrade to your experience to get something a bit more substantial feeling. The only thing I would say that you need to look for in a tamper is a leveling mechanism, meaning that there's something that catches on the rim of your portafilter to make sure you're tamping level. It's very possible to do this without, but why take the risk? Just remove the possible variable of screwing up your tamp with one that levels it out for you. And funny enough, probably my favorite tamp is still this one because it has a big flat top for pressing down with your palm. Now, this next one might be a personal preference, but I really don't like standalone portafilter holders. They take up a lot of room in your coffee space, and depending on your portafilter type, they often don't actually work to keep your portafilter level, and you still have to hold it the whole time while you distribute and tamp. I got this mat ages ago, and I actually think this is the best format. It has two indents to keep a tamp and a leveler or some other round tool if you have one, and a flat square where I like to keep my dosing funnel. Oh, that's another one that should have gone into the things to have section. Dosing funnel. A small rubber mat is all you need, really, especially if you're using a bottomless portafilter, and a spouted one can still be tamped against the edge of the table on the rubber mat. So for me, this is a much better solution than a portafilter holder. The last one I never need is a coffee measuring spoon. Just pour the beans in from your coffee bag, guys. You're gonna be weighing them anyway in a dosing cup on a scale. It's not like putting 2 teaspoons of sugar in your tea. Anyway, I hope you found this helpful, and as always, links to everything I talked about, as well as my book, are in the description below. Every book sale helps me keep this channel going, as all this gear for videos is pretty expensive, and making content like this takes a long time and a lot of work. I really appreciate those of you who support me by getting the book. Thank you so much for watching, you wonderfully overcaffeinated people, and I'll see you on the next one.